Syria, where reportedly Syria's army has acknowledged that it had lost control of the strategic central city of Hama for the first time since war broke out in 2011 amid a lightning rebel offensive. This marks a second major gain for a newly formed rebel coalition that also captured Aleppo last week. Aleppo, remember, is Syria's second largest city, which was captured last week by rebel groups after a surprise offensive overran President Bashar al-Assad's forces and allied militias as well. Meanwhile, the Syrian rebels have released the video that you see on your screens showing military vehicles inside Hama. The offensive has been a major setback for Assad and his backers in Iran and Russia and has reignited a civil war that had been largely dormant for years. Meanwhile, Syrian air defenses shot down 2 enemy drones over Damascus on Thursday. State news agency Sana reported, citing a military source. Syrian rebel leader Abu Muhammad al-Jalani has said that there will be no revenge after his Islamist group seized the Syrian city of Hama, where government forces crushed an uprising in 1982.
I ask God Almighty that it be a conquest with no revenge. I announced the fighters had entered Hama to cleanse the wound that has endured in Syria for 40 years.
Video shows residents cheering the rebels. Meanwhile, China's embassy sent an urgent notice advising its citizens to leave Syria as soon as possible as Islamist-led rebel forces continue their offensive against President Bashar al-Assad's troops. And as we stay with these videos and visuals, for more updates, my colleague Amritpal Singh, who's been tracking the story very closely, joins us from the newsroom. Amrit, over to you. What more do we know? I mean, it is definitely a very big setback for Assad, but a major breakthrough for the coalition front?
Yes, the rebels are marching south and rapidly so. After they seized Aleppo last week, now they have the Hama, which is strategically located because, highways crisscross through that. Once they consolidate Hama, there is a redeployment of the Syrian forces outside Hama because the fight for Hama had been going on for the past 2 days in the villages surrounding Hama. And now that they've broken into the city, seized it and pushed the Syrian forces out, they would be, regrouping and getting backups from rebels who are, who have deployment up north. So they plan, looks like that the strategy is to push as south as they can. The next big city en route to Damascus is Homs.
Okay.
If they take Homs, that could prove to be the proverbial tilting point for Bashar al-Assad. Right now, with Aleppo and Hama gone, there is a significant loss to the Assad forces. But still he manages to control most of the territory of Syria, though it's a civil war which has been a protracted civil war which has been going on for so long. But if Homs falls, then the situation could turn and then President Assad's regime could come into serious trouble. So, in that sense, the capturing of Hama is important. Sakal.
President Assad and his forces and allies will definitely retaliate, assuming that Syria is actually on the brink once again of a massive civil war, the way things are going.
With Syria, the problem is that there is a Shia or an Alawite regime in place. President Bashar al-Assad, his father, who was a former Air Force pilot, became the president there, and then his son, Bashar al-Assad, took over the regime. Though it is a broadly secular regime, but the population there, especially in the northern areas, is largely Sunni. So that's why you see, the celebrations, the kind of celebrations and the kind of statements coming out of the rebel camp saying that there would be no revenge, and people cheering because there is a Sunni dispensation or a Sunni, these fighters are basically Sunni fighters. There is, yes, a civil war going on. Some attribute it to President Assad's dictatorial policies, his strict control on the regime, the falling economic situation there, etc. But yes, there is a civil strife to it. There is a sectarian nature to the conflict. So we'll have to see how this develops. But if it engulfs, say if they reach the center of the country, then as I said, it could change, it could tilt the scales really.
Yeah. So, if the consolidation of the rebels coalition happened this time, it's not going to really augur well with Syria in large. Like Amrit, how do you see the situation unfolding?
Okay, the threat, that's a good question, Sakal. The threat, Middle East or West Asia is already in a lot of crisis because of the Hamas-Israel conflict, which spilled over to Lebanon, though there is a ceasefire in place right now. But you're sitting on a ticking bomb there.
Yeah.
All these countries, if you look at the geography, are just next to each other. So the situation could easily spiral into a regional conflict.
Okay.
Now, with the American change of guard, we don't know what Donald Trump's policies would be towards Israel, but the noises coming out of his camp are that he's going to side very stridently with the Israelis. Now, with a volatile situation, with a political turmoil going on in the other region, it could, and Russia and China clearly taking sides, especially Russia launching airstrikes, it could become a full-blown regional conflict with multifaceted regional conflict, which threatens, to blow out into all-out situation between the world powers. When the world is facing two wars, one in Europe, the other in West Asia, it cannot have it, further escalating it further. So therefore, that fear looms large. But as I said, that's still some distance away because Bashar al-Assad still controls most of Syria. It remains to be seen whether the Syrian forces can stop the onslaught. Will the battle lines be frozen where they are, or will the rebels be able to progress further if they feel they have a sizable part of Syria? And then I think there will be a strong retaliation and which could snowball into a full-fledged regional conflict.
All right, Amritpal, many thanks for joining us live on this very, very important story. Thank you.